Good day, everyone. This is Dr. S. Praveen Kumar, the Dean of School of Commerce and Management, Bharat Institute of Higher Education and Research, Chennai, India. The course name is Human Resource Management, and we're going to talk about subverting the paradigm. So, as HR people, you need to understand the way, the style of several corporate gurus who had subverted the paradigm. So I'm calling them the rebels because they rebelled against the system. They were thought leaders, and it is only a dead fish that will swim along the current. A fish which has a lot of life swims against the current. So these were rebels which went against the current and made marvels out of their efforts. To start with the first stalwart, Dhirubhai Ambani. I would call him, or the story of Dhirubhai, as Dhirubhaiism. Like we study human resource management, marketing management, operations management, this is one subject. Dhirubhaiism is a subject in itself. When he was 17 years old, he was working for Shell Petroleum as a petrol bunk assistant, as a daily wage earner. He was a son of a Gujarati school teacher, and after his 10th standard, his father wanted Dhirubhai to become a school teacher like himself. But that was what Dhirubhai had at the last of his mind. He never wanted to become a school teacher. So once he completed his 10th standard, he went to Yemen, a Middle East country, and worked for Shell Petroleum as a petrol bunk assistant, a daily wage earner. On a Friday, when there were not many vehicles to attend to, all these petrol bunk boys had a friendly chit chat with themselves. They asked a typical HR question without knowing it is a typical HR question. How do you see yourself in the next 10 years? How do you see yourself in the long run from here? The first boy said, I would like to become the supervisor of this bunk. Everyone thought for a while and said, it looks a little ambitious, but supervisor, yes, possible. You work for 10 years here, loyal in this firm, they promote you and you become the supervisor, possible. And the second one said, I would like to become the manager of this bunk. And they started to laugh. Supervisor is okay. Manager is too much. How do you become the manager of a bunk? You do not have the proper education. And manager is too much. Supervisor is okay. Ambitious, but okay. When it was Dhirubhai's turn, he said, I would like to own a petrol bunk like this. This was the greatest joke for them. Two even rolled onto the ground laughing with laughter. Rolling with laughter. You are a daily wage earner and you want to own this bunk? We were already laughing at the guy who said who wanted to become the manager. And you want to own this bunk? They couldn't control the laughter. When he died at the age of 63, forget about owning petrol bunks. He owned the only oil refinery in India. The only oil private refinery in India. All other oil refineries are owned by the government. Reliance owned the only oil refinery. Let's not talk about the innumerable petrol bunks they owned. That was the vision That was the entrepreneurial passion and fire that Dhirubhai had. He wanted to own a bunk when he was working as a daily wage earner. So no formal family background, no formal MBA degree. However, reigned the corporate dump of India. How did he do that? The answer is Dhirubhaiism. That is why we need to study him, study his life, his strategies and tactics. Let me quote another incident that happened in his life when he was a young boy in Yemen. The Yemenese government said, let's proclaim to the world that we are also a rich nation. Let's mint one particular currency, a coin in silver, one particular denomination of coin in silver. So they started to mint one particular coin in silver. Dhirubhai understood. Let's say, for instance, the face value of the coin was 1 riyal. If you sell it as silver, as metal, it was equivalent to 20 riyals. So Dhirubhai started to collect these coins, this particular denomination of coins that was minted in silver. He used to collect them, go to the bullion market, convert these coins into metal and sell it as silver biscuits and earn tenfold out of this. Then he said to all his neighbors and friends and everybody he knew that he is interested in collecting this particular coin because he was doing this as a hobby. And all around Dhirubhai started to collect this particular coin. They gave it to Dhirubhai and he'll pay them a commission for the face value and an incentive. So at one point of time, almost the entire locality was collecting these coins and giving it to Dhirubhai because they got some easy money. And Dhirubhai started to collect these coins in gunny bags, converted them into silver bars and made a lot of money. This went on until the Yemenese government said, hey, where are the coins? We keep minting a lot of coins and they do not seem to come into circulation, these silver coins. Something is wrong. By the time they found out that the coins were disappearing because it was all collected by an Indian called Dhirubhai Ambani, he was already here in India. He did not do anything illegal because the law of any land says you cannot make counterfeited coins. But no law says you cannot convert a good coin into a metal. So it was not against the laws of the land. When he came down to India and started his very small office, he scanned the environment. Today's IT companies were those days cotton mills. Every Indian businessman, the who's who in India, was into cotton. The Tatas, the Birlas, the Singhanias, Goenkas, Badias, Mafetlals, all of them were running cotton mills. And Dhirubhai said, I am not going to invest in cotton because I cannot join the big boys game and beat them in the game. Look how beautiful. You cannot join the big boys game and beat them in their game. So what do? Start your own game and become a big boy in that particular game. So he started his own game, which was setting up a polyester filament yarn, not a cotton mill. because polyester at that point of time was new to the entire world and not just to India. So he called his managers and said, do research for me, find out what is the total capacity. They did research, and let's say they came and told to Dhirubhai that there's a 100-ton capacity for polyester in India. Dhirubhai, without batting his eyelid, said, I'm going to set up a factory which has a capacity of 1,000 tons and not 100 tons. Now his managers could not understand this logic. They were bewildered. They were wondering what is wrong with this guy. One of them picked some guts and asked him, sir, what are we going to do with this 900 tons additional capacity? We cannot eat polyester. Dhirubhai says, think global, act local. Think global, act local. I'll export them. If the capacity in India is 100 tons, think about the entire world. And therefore, I multiplied it 10x times. Likewise, his factory in petrochemicals. Today, the leading manufacturers in India with regard to petrochemicals is Reliance. And when he entered the capital markets in 1977, he attracted the middle class Indians to invest in the capital markets in his company. And the middle class Indian also invested, was handsomely rewarded. So at one point of time, their annual general body meetings happened in cricket stadiums in Mumbai. That was the number of shareholders who stayed invested with Reliance. When he inaugurated one particular retail outlet in the city of Bangalore, in fact, another added point is, on one single day, Dhirubhai inaugurated 100 different retail outlets of Vimal fashion showrooms, garment stores, 100 retail outlets in just one day. Even today, to inaugurate 100 retail outlets in one single day is next to impossible. It's a record of sorts. Because Dhirubhai would say, whatever you do it in a large scale or don't do it. Did he know about economy of scale? Which B school taught him economy of scale? He had them innately. That is why it is called Dhirubhaiism. Management is ultimately common sense, but common sense is not common to all. In fact, the center spread of the newspaper would hold only the addresses of 100 different retail outlets of women. The space was adequate enough only to talk about the 100 different addresses. There was one particular retail outlet that he inaugurated in Mahatma Gandhi Road, Bangalore. Now the advertisers were gung-ho about it because the ad budget is going to be really big because it is at MG Road, Bangalore. Whereas Dhirubhai said, no, I'm not going to advertise. Instead, you hire 2 choppers, helicopters, make them throw rose petals all around, along with the pamphlets of the Vimal retail outlet. The advertiser said, sir, that can be done, but the reach and frequency would be limited to that city alone. Only when we go for mass media advertising like newspapers and televisions, We can cover the entire state. We'll make people know that Reliance has opened its retail outlet at MG Road. We need a mass medium. So newspapers are the best. Dhirubhai said, no, I have other plans. You just do what I said. So they were disappointed. Nevertheless, the boss had said so they could not do anything. They hired two choppers. This was way back in 1980, where we were an entertainment-starved society. Today we are an over-entertained society. Today it's totally different. 1980, entertainment-starved. We did not have so many channels or a mobile phone or social media, absolutely nothing. So when two choppers were flying low, throwing rose petals everywhere along with the pamphlets of Vimal Retail Outlet in and around the locality, everybody stopped and watched it. People ran to their terraces, children running all along the streets, picking up those pamphlets and rose petals. And moreover, we are a nation of onlookers. It is a national hobby. Any Indian would want to go and peep and see anything that is happening because it's a national hobby. It can be an accident, it can be a film shooting, it can be a serial shooting, whatever. We would want to go and be part of it. So likewise, this chopper plan fed the entertainment-starved society and also encouraged the national hobby of onlooking. Next day, when you open the newspaper, headline was about how the entire Bangalore city was running around the streets and standing with mouth gaping at the choppers that are flying above their head, flying low. The editor of the newspaper talking about it is publicity. You don't spend a penny and still you have reached the entire state of Karnataka. That is why he is a subject in himself, Dhirubhaiism. Why can't these things be taught in a business school? They cannot be taught. Before he died, in one of the press meets, they asked him this question, sir, what is your secret? Yours is a rags to riches story. No formal family background, no formal business degree, no financial support, and you built the biggest private enterprise in India, biggest conglomerate in India, the first company to enter, the first private company to enter in the Fortune 500 companies list. How is this possible? What is your secret? And Dhirubhai said, it is guts. And this guts cannot be taught in a classroom. This is how Dhirubhai subverted the paradigm. And with regard to the HR part of Dhirubhai, in a press meet, for instance, when a question is raised, it is always addressed to you by your name, Mr. So-and-so. And then the question follows after your name being called. Whereas for Dhirubhai Ambani, it was always Dhirubhai. There was no Mr. Ambani there. That was the rapport he enjoyed with the press. And every time he walked out of the office to attend a meeting or to call it a day and take his car that was waiting outside his office, whoever comes along the path, it his arms around them. It could be a clerk, it could be an office assistant. He put his arms around their shoulder and start a conversation with Kya Dost, and the conversation starts. So that is the HR element the human resource, the chief people officer in Dhirubhai Ambani. This is C.K. Ranganathan. C.K. refers to his father, Chinni Krishnan. Chinni Krishnan. C-H-I and K put together is Chick Shampoos. So Chick Shampoos, the name comes from Chinni Krishnan. Let's first start talking about Chinni Krishnan. He had an entrepreneurial mind. And he was very good at miniaturizing. Let's say he had the license to miniaturize tablets. Tablets which came in large packaging. 100 tablets, for instance. He'll break them into 10 packets. And he'll ensure that the poor people who do not have the money to buy the entire case of 100 tablets can buy it in small quantities of 5s and 10s. So he was very good in miniaturizing. And his sons, after him, took over his business. His father had left them behind a debt of 2 lakh rupees, which was very high during the 1980s. So they had to start from there. For the first time, an FMCG product, a liquid FMCG products like shampoos, were miniaturized, were packed in sachets, and that revolution started in Tamil Nadu, started in Kadalur, and spread throughout the entire world. Today, Kavin Care, a company, a force to reckon with, are competitors to giants like Procter & Gamble and Unilever. They are giants there. Kavin Care has captured a market share for them, competing with those giants. A typical David and Goliath story to happen. Today, Kavin Care is the brand to reckon with. In fact, the brand name Kavin is in fact a Tamil word which means beauty. Kavin Care is care for your beauty. The Japanese in the 1980s were very good in miniaturizing. The Americans will invent color televisions. The Japanese will give you the portable color televisions. Smaller in size, better in quality. The Americans will invent Harley Davidson, the 450cc's and 350cc's. The Japanese will give you Honda Cubs, the 50cc mopeds. The Japanese will invent the stereo system, and Sony will give you a Walkman. So the Japanese were very good in miniaturization. Somebody from India, Kadalur, who miniaturized a shampoo bottle which was very expensive and not affordable by the ordinary people, started using shampoos because of the miniaturization, the sachet revolution propounded by C.K. Ranganathan. His family, Chinni Krishnan's family, introduced the first shampoos in sachets. It was called Velvet. From there, C.K. Ranganathan broke out of his family and started his own brand, which was Chick Shampoos. Now, during those days, shampoos were hardly known. Forget about Chick Shampoos. The very concept of shampoos was not known by people, because there were two very popular soaps. The one was very popular among the poor of India, the rural household. It was called the Life Boy. You buy that soap for 5 rupees, the entire family of 10 people can take bath again and again and again for the entire month, and still the soap is there, larger than life. Indians love anything that gives them value for money. And there was no shampoos and soaps, it was just the soap that was also used for your hair. People never thought there is another thing called shampoos which needs to be used for your hair. So the soap was multi-purpose. And the middle class Indians preferred hammam. So C.K. Ranganathan said, first of all, these people need to be taught what is a shampoo. We need to market the concept of shampoo. Only thereafter we can market this concept called chick shampoos. Let's not market the brand. Let's market the product first. And to market this product, we do not have the resources. Kavin Care was just started in an office which was hardly 200 square feet. Just 2 tables. Not enough money even to buy office furniture. Forget about marketing. What did we do? C.K. Ranganathan would say, it is not money problem. It is ideas problem. Don't tell me you have a money problem. Tell me you have an idea problem. So they started to sell these shampoos, not necessarily in retail outlets because the retailers weren't ready to stock these shampoos. They started to sell even in cycle shops or places where newspapers were vended. The idea was anybody who wanted a second income apart from their regular business, they were given stocks of shampoos to be sold. Gradually, they made some money. They pulled in their resources and he hired a van with a projector. And he'll take this van with a projector to the interior villages of Tamil Nadu. I had already mentioned we were an entertainment-starved society during the 70s and 80s. No satellite channels. So when the van with the projector went around a village, the entire village assembled around 7 o'clock in the evening. And he used to play movies. So everybody was in full attendance. And during the intermission, he and his team will pick out some of the dirty urchins from the crowd, give them a bath with the buckets and mugs that they have brought, use shampoos for their head, dry them, and then take these kids around the crowd. They'll ask them, see how soft the hair is, smell how fragrant the hair is. This is called shampoos. Will your soap be so effective and efficient? Why don't you try this? This is only 50 paisa. That is how they tried to market the concept called shampoos before they started to sell their brand. Aerodynamically, the bumblebee shouldn't be able to fly. You know why? Because the body of the bumblebee is so heavy and the wings are so light that scientifically it is not possible for the bumblebee to carry its body with those tiny wings. But the bumblebee flies because the bumblebee does not know it cannot fly. C.K. Ranganathan refused to believe that this cannot be done. In India alone, there is this product called Fairness Creams that are sold. Nowhere else is a product called Fairness Cream sold. In other parts of the world, it is called the sunscreen lotion. It protects you from the UV rays of sun. Because the world knows that a cream cannot change the color of your skin. Only some liquids can do. Creams cannot do. Liquids like concentrated hydrochloric acid, concentrated sulfuric acid can change the color of your skin. A cream cannot do. The cream at the best can protect the sun's rays from your body, your skin becoming further tanned. That is all a cream could do. So there was this larger than life brand in India called Fairness Creams, Fair and Lovely. Even in a country like South Africa, where people are darker than us, they've accepted the color of the skin and they do not use any sunscreen lotions. Whereas in India, because of the colonial hangover, you would all want to look fair. And so people started to use Fair and Lovely. Whether it is a 7-day challenge or a 7-week challenge or a 70-year-old challenge, you will never ever get your skin hair. Not possible. And when the population was very tired with this idea, C.K. Ranganathan introduced his own product called Fairever. Fairever was a direct competition to Fair and Lovely. Now, for you to enter this market and capture it is extremely difficult. But C.K. Ranganathan refused to believe that. He said, my product has a USP, unique selling proposition. It has Himalayan Kumkum in it. Kumkum is the one which makes your skin fair. Fair and Lovely does not have. It is full of chemicals, whereas mine has Himalayan Kumkum in it. All of a sudden, it was a sort of enlightening to the Indians. They felt cheated on using Fair and Lovely and said, that is why my color of the skin did not change, because it does not have kumkum. And around 40% of the customer base shifted to Fairever. So this is C.K. Ranganathan, a person who subverted the paradigm. We'll talk about more such stalwarts who subverted the paradigm in our next session. Thank you so much. Sir?
Sir, கேக்குது சார்.
Upload right,
upload ஆயிடுச்சு சார்.